Hey everyone, it's Pastor Steve, and I'm starting a new video series called Back to the Basics, where we take a look at some of the basic things that Christians believe and why we believe them. And I need to put up front that this is not me telling you what you have to believe, but rather talking about the big issues and putting out the ideas out there, and together we can wrestle with them and try to understand what they are. And so I'm going to start really basic with this first one. And the first basic teaching is that God exists. So the question is, does God exist? Well, yeah, he does exist. But we need a little bit more to that, because there are a number of atheists out there and agnostics who are just not sure. And I've been an atheist myself for a period of time, so I understand that these are questions that we need to wrestle with. And I hope that what we talk about here might be helpful for you in your own understanding of God, but also maybe this will be helpful for you when you're talking with friends and family who may struggle with the existence of God. It may give you some pointers to show them that there is evidence for God. And I need to, I guess, begin by saying that we're going to look at evidence, not proof. It's really hard to prove anything. I can't even prove that I'm recording this video at this moment. Maybe I'm dreaming that I am recording this video. I don't know. I've had some pretty vivid dreams. It's really hard to prove something. That's really in the area of mathematics that you have proofs. But we can have evidence. We can put forward what we think is the best evidence, and we weigh that evidence, and we try, based on that, to figure out what is most likely to be true. And so that's what we're going to try to do. So here's the first thing that I have in terms of evidence for the existence of God, and that is that there is a universe. The universe exists. The universe started at some point, whether that was the Big Bang or something else. All the scientific evidence points to a beginning to the universe. How did that universe start? And not only how did the universe start, but how was it a universe that could allow for the formation of stars and of planets, that it was a universe that was life-sustaining. Even if we are the only planet that has life on it, how was it that this universe could start in such a way that would allow even one planet to have life? And so just the existence of the universe points towards some creator. And talking about the existence of life, that is another piece of evidence for the existence of God. And we're going to put aside right now the whole debate about evolution and creation and all of that, and maybe we can look at that in a future video. But right now, let's just accept that the basic premise that life began to exist on this planet. How did that happen? How was it that life could happen? And even if it began with a one-celled creature, how could that one-celled creature evolve into what we are right now? It is really pointing towards the existence of some kind of intelligent designer behind what we see. Because not only do we have basic life on Earth, but we have so many varieties of complex life. And just looking at our bodies, the ways our eyes work and our ears work, our hands. Have you ever looked at how basic our robots are that we've created? We have spent so much money, we've used so much technology and our best minds, and we can't even come close to what many people say came about by accident, but we believe that there is something behind it. So the existence of life is part of the evidence that we have. Another one that you perhaps never have thought about is the argument from desire. And what this argument is, and this really comes from C.S. Lewis. he I think is the first one who really came up with this, is that when you look at every other desire that we have in life, so it could be a desire for food, for something to drink, for recreation, a desire for relationships, a desire for intellectual development. There's all kinds of things. Everything that we desire seems to have something that exists that can fulfill that desire. And so if we desire something beyond ourselves, whether that is heaven or God or whatever, if that doesn't exist, that would be the one thing that we desire that wouldn't exist. And yet that seems to be unlikely. If everything else that we have that we greatly desire has a fulfillment somewhere, why shouldn't our desire for God and for something beyond this world, why shouldn't that be something that exists out there as well? Another piece of evidence for the existence of God is that of beauty. Why are some things beautiful? And I'm talking about art, but it could be beauty in nature as well. When we look at a beautiful sunset, why do we think that that's beautiful? What makes it beautiful? And why is it that so many people can agree that there is beauty in that? What about music? Why is it that certain notes and certain chords go together to produce a pleasing sound and others do not? Not everyone can play music, and if you just randomly hit strings or hit keys on a piano, that's not music. But certain ways it is music. What determines that? So I think the existence of beauty, whether it's in art or nature or music, also points towards God. And then there's the argument from morality. And this is saying that there has to be a measure for anything. Why is there right or wrong? And when we look at two people like Adolf Hitler and Mother Teresa, we would say that Adolf Hitler was wrong and was evil, and Mother Teresa was good. Why is that? How do we determine that? Why should we say that the actions of one is wrong and the actions of another is good? That is something that we have to take into account. There seems to be a measure. When we are driving along and we determine that we have driven a mile or a kilometer, we know that we have because there is a measure to that. How do we measure morality? How do we determine that telling the truth is better than telling a lie? That being faithful is better than committing adultery? That saving a life is better than taking a life? How do we determine those things? And it would seem that there is a moral lawgiver. I think the existence of love is another pointer towards God. What is love? Naturalists will say, well, it's just the firings within our brain. It's chemical reactions that are happening in our brain. But think of the love of a parent for a child, or the love of spouses, the love of deep friends. How is it that that is just a accident of evolution? It's not always about love as being a way to sustain the species. Sometimes the act of love is something that puts things in danger, and yet we choose to do that. And so I think love actually points towards God. Another piece of evidence for the existence of God is the resurrection of Jesus. And I'm going to do a video on the resurrection of Jesus. For now, let's just assume that the resurrection of Jesus happened. We'll look at the evidence at another time. How did that happen? How does someone go from being dead to alive? And yes, we hear stories of someone who's drowned and all of a sudden they come back to life. They've been frozen, they die of hypothermia, and all of a sudden they're back to life. We're not talking that. We're talking someone who has been in a tomb and is there for a number of days, and on the third day comes out alive. How does that happen? Normally, people do not come back from the dead. And so this is something that we need to be taking seriously. I think that God is a better explanation than that it just came about by accident. And then the final piece of evidence that I'm going to share is that of experience. And I realize there are some people who don't like that because experience is so subjective. They want to have a much more objective piece of evidence. But I think experience is an important thing. I've had some very specific answers to prayer that have really pointed me towards the existence of God. It was one of the things that really pushed me towards becoming a Christian, having a very specific answer to prayer. And so I think our experiences are important. Yes, there is a subjective part of it, and we need to be careful. But we need to look at it in the light of other things, the other evidence we have, biblical revelation, all of those other things. But I think that experience can be a helpful way of understanding who God is. And so we're going to look at another time the attributes of God. But for now, I would say that the experience of God is a part of it. So there is some of the evidence for the existence of God. Does that mean that everyone has to look at that and they will automatically believe in God? Probably not. There are also reasons why some people don't believe in God, and we will look at that at a different time as well. But I think overall, on balance, there is more evidence for the existence of God than there is evidence for the non-existence of God. So that is our first video. When we go back to the basics, does God exist? Yes, God exists, and there is some pretty good evidence for God existing. Thank you for watching this video, and be watching for the next one. Thank you, and God bless.